This city has been standing for nearly 9,000 years. It's like a rock labyrinth carved into caves. But it was once the shame of Italy. In the 1950s, thousands of people here were forcibly evicted, their homes emptied. The city was left to rot, a quiet and deserted place. But Sassi di Matera never gave up. This centuries-old town has been revitalized. But how? What role did Matera's identity carved in stone and its connection with humanity play in this great transformation? Historians consider the Sassi di Matera to be one of the oldest cities in the world with continuous human habitation. What makes Matera really special is that people have lived a similar way of life here for thousands of years. Traces from the Paleolithic and Neolithic eras show that this area has been home to humans for more than 9,000 years. Archaeological finds from Murgia Timon, Murgekia, and other settlements in the surrounding hills indicate that people lived here from very early times. Sassi di Matera, which literally means stones of Matera, consists of 2 or even 3 parts. The main parts of the city are called Civita, Sasso Barisano, and Sasso Cavioso. Civita is the highest point of the city and separates the other 2 parts. Sasso Barisano faces north towards Bari, while Sasso Cavioso faces south. In this sense, the name Sassi describes the macro regions. The Sasso Cavioso, in particular, consists mostly of labyrinthine caves and houses carved into the rocks. There are also animal enclosures and churches. There are more than 150 churches in the town and the surrounding valley. They are thought to have been built in ancient times by Christian monks. The most famous is Santa Maria di Idris, a 12th century church. So the city isn't just a living space, but a place of spiritual pilgrimage. The most spectacular site, however, is located on the highest point of the city, the Civita. This is the Cathedral of Matera, built in the 13th century in Romanesque style. The high ridge on which the cathedral stands is also called Civita, because it was the place where citizens used to meet for social gatherings. The Sassi houses are an architectural marvel that makes the most of what nature has to offer. Each house is made up of caves carved into the rock and parts built from tough stone outside. These houses aren't only living spaces, but also a perfect system for collecting and storing water. The huge Palombaro Lungo cistern under Piazza Vittorio Veneto is the most impressive example. After centuries of economic and cultural vitality, Sassi di Matera faced a serious demographic boom in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The growing population upset the old balance. The city, once in harmony with nature, became increasingly crowded and living conditions deteriorated. This glorious city began to fall out of favor. Economic opportunities diminished, the population became poorer, and lagged far behind the modern world. Increasing numbers of families had to live in small, dim, and damp houses. Even old churches, cisterns, and cellars became dwellings. There was no sewage system and no drinking water. People shared the same spaces with their animals. These conditions led to the spread of disease and increased infant mortality. Immediately after the Second World War, the situation of the Sassi di Matera became more visible to the general public, thanks to the anti-fascist Italian writer Carlo Levi's book, Jesus Stopped at Eboli, published in 1945. However, it was not until 1948 that the city began to be described as a national disgrace. Although it is generally attributed to the revisionist Palmiro Togliatti, leader of the Italian Communist Party and deputy prime minister at the time, I have found no conclusive evidence of this. Nevertheless, the phrase national shame was widely used both among politicians and in the media. This stigmatization was of course a heavy blow for the city's inhabitants. Sassi di Matera became a symbol of Italy's southern problem and backwardness. In 1952, the government of Prime Minister Alcide de Gasperi signed a special law for the evacuation of Sassi. Around 17,000 people were forced to leave their homes where they had lived for centuries. They moved to new neighborhoods, designed by the team of urban planner Adriano Olivetti. Sassi di Matera was completely evacuated and abandoned. The inhabitants had to leave their lives, which had been adapted to the natural landscape for hundreds of years, and suddenly get used to concrete structures and a different order. Sassi di Matera was now a ghost town. It was only years later that the abandoned state of the city began to attract more attention from some artists and researchers. Those who came here were shocked. In addition to being one of humanity's oldest settlements, it had existed for thousands of years and, until recent history, had been used along with its rock-carved houses, churches, and ancient artworks. Thus, the interest in Sassi di Matera translated itself into cinema. The turning point was when the famous director Pier Paolo Pasolini chose Matera in 1964 to shoot his film The Gospel According to Matthew. Pasolini was the first to recognize the resemblance of Sassi and the surrounding plateau of Murgia to Jerusalem. After this movie, Matera began to be seen as an ideal location for Christian stories. For example, it became the ideal location for many religious-themed films, such as Francesco Rossi's Christ Stopped at Eboli, Bruce Beresford's King David, Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, and Catherine Hardwicke's The Nativity Story. Sassi di Matera has been used for decades as a filming location and a site for research. The Sassi area remained abandoned until 1986. Thanks to the efforts of the people of Matera and the municipal government, a special law enacted that year provided funding for the revitalization of the historic center. This was one of the key turning points that changed the city's fate, but the most significant transformation occurred in 1993. Through the efforts of architect and urban planner Pietro Loriano, the Sassi districts and the Murgia Maturana Park were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. For the first time, UNESCO defined Sassi di Matera as a, quote, cultural landscape. This recognition completely changed the way the city was perceived. Once considered a national shame, the area was now regarded as a unique cultural treasure. The historical fabric of the region was preserved, and this ancient city came back to life. Abandoned houses and caves were repurposed by artisans, museums, hotels, and restaurants. While the people of Sassi reclaimed their past, they also began to look toward the future with hope. Sassi di Matera had now become a thriving tourist destination. Matera was not just a city, it was a living treasure, a cultural paradise that blended history, art, and heritage. This recognition was crowned when Matera, along with Plovdiv, was named the European Capital of Culture in 2019. At the same time, the city also became a renowned filming location, hosting major productions that brought it international fame. It served as the backdrop for iconic films such as Ben-Hur, Wonder Woman, and even No Time to Die from the James Bond series. Matera has also drawn world-famous stars, including Sophia Loren, Marcello Mastroianni, Nino Manfredi, Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, Catherine Hardwicke, Rami Malek, Morgan Freeman, and Daniel Craig. Having gained global recognition through cinema, the city also experienced a significant boom in tourism. Rock houses, once abandoned due to unsanitary conditions, were transformed into luxury hotels, boutique hostels, and fine dining restaurants. Old cisterns and cellars were repurposed into museums and art galleries. With the opportunities brought by the modern world, Sassi di Matera finally had the chance to open itself to the world. Sassi di Matera has survived not only because of its unique stone buildings, but also because of its cultural history, its traditions, the solidarity and resilience of its people. Today, Matera is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Italy. Traditional celebrations, like the Festa Della Bruna, held every year on July 2nd, keep the city's cultural heritage alive, while modern events attract a new generation of tourists. With its origins dating back to 1389, the festival is celebrated every year during the first week of July and is dedicated to Madonna della Bruna, whom the people of Matera consider the patron saint of the city. She is actually a local representation of Maria Santissima della Bruna, a title of the Virgin Mary. However, the festival is not purely a Christian celebration. Fireworks, musical performances, fairs, theatrical shows, and various pagan rituals are also part of the festivities. The statue of Madonna della Bruna is carried in a grand, triumphal carriage, known as the Carro Trionfale, and paraded through the city before being taken to the cathedral. Once the statue has been removed, people eagerly tear apart the papier-mâché cart. The festival's main feast day is July 2nd. Since it coincides with a public holiday, tens of thousands of people, including tourists, flood the streets. The celebrations are driven by a curious mix of motivations, ranging from religious devotion to competitive and aggressive excitement. The festival is a significant part of local beliefs and cultural traditions, serving not only as a spiritual symbol, but also as an integral part of Matera's cultural identity. Long ago, people built houses here in harmony with the natural landscape. They collected and conserved water and used energy efficiently. Now this ancient wisdom is merging with modern design and technology. But this transformation isn't without its challenges. With tourism on the rise, it is becoming harder to preserve local culture and maintain authenticity. Hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world visit Matera every year. This is a very high rate for Matera. The local way of life and traditions that form the soul of the city are increasingly at risk. Whether the growing number of tourists is a resource or a problem for the city is a matter of debate. Tourists don't come to Matera to know about Sassi, but to see the places where the movie takes place, says Pietro Loriano. This tragic fact can have both positive and negative consequences for the city. While there are still concerns about the future of Sassi di Matera, its 1,000-year story is nonetheless a fascinating example of human history and resilience. Matera's transformation reminds us, to preserve our cultural heritage is not to erase the past, but to make peace with it and learn from it. It is possible to balance old and new, tradition and innovation. What do you think? How can we stay connected to our roots without getting lost in the modern world? How can we use the wisdom of the past to find solutions to the problems of the future?